In 2004, the World Health Organization published a map entitled Fluoride and Arsenic in Drinking Water. Its first paragraph reads, "In Kakiriyadi village, India, a group of children with limbs twisted out of shape hobble forward with the help of walking sticks. They grin with embarrassment because they cannot run like other children their age. Fluoride poisoning has crippled their limbs." Then it says, "Like fluoride, arsenic is widely distributed throughout the Earth's crust and is present in almost all waters in very small amounts. In certain areas, however, there are dangerous levels of this toxin. The most tragic example is Bangladesh, where thousands of wells are causing a mass poisoning." Part of the map, labelled "Arsenic Poisoning in Bangladesh," shows a large portion of the country has dangerous levels of arsenic in the water, about which, they say, some estimates suggest arsenic in drinking water will cause 200,000 deaths from cancer in Bangladesh alone. Under health effects, they list for fluorosis, or fluoride poisoning, tooth damage and bone damage. For arsenicosis, which is arsenic poisoning, they list skin damage and cancer. The general point being made here is that just because nature put it in the water doesn't mean that it's necessarily good for you. Other points worth making are that Bangladesh shows that even in modern times, it is entirely possible for millions of people to be poisoned for decades and for nobody to notice. Nobody noticed because nobody was actively looking. Just like nobody is actively looking for fluoride poisoning in those few countries that still deliberately add it to their water. If you do not look, then you will not find. Bangladesh also shows that it's perfectly possible for millions of people to be poisoned for decades, and for you not to know anything about it. You didn't know anything about it because nobody told you. But just because nobody told you doesn't mean that it isn't happening. The map concludes by saying there are 2 million cases of skeletal fluorosis in China. In April 2005, SciDevNet published an article called "China Maps Massive Problem of Water Contamination." It said some 65 million Chinese rely on water supplies that are contaminated with arsenic or fluoride, according to the first national survey of the country's supply of drinking water. 63 million people drink water contaminated by fluoride, said Wen Donggai, director of the China Geological Survey's Hydrogeology Division and co-chair of the survey. In addition, he said, groundwater used to supply 2 million is contaminated by arsenic. High levels of arsenic can cause high blood pressure, neurological diseases, diabetes and cancer. Excessive fluoride can trigger arthritis and tooth loss. In 2006, the World Health Organization published a study called Fluoride in Drinking Water, in which it stated, in China, some 38 million people are reported to suffer from dental fluorosis and 1.7 million from the more severe skeletal fluorosis. In India, Susheela and Daz suggested that around 1 million people suffer from serious and incapacitating skeletal fluorosis. So, to summarise what we've heard so far, fluoride poisoning is called fluorosis, and more than one part of the body can be poisoned by fluoride. For example, poisoning of the bones is called skeletal fluorosis. Poisoning of the teeth is called dental fluorosis. Poisoning of the stomach is called gastrointestinal fluorosis. Nerve damage can be caused when the bony outgrowths of skeletal fluorosis crush or scrape nerve fibres. And gastrointestinal fluorosis can cause malnourishment of both mother and child. All of these poisonous effects are associated with calcium fluoride. The next fluoride that we need to examine is called cryolite, a combination of aluminium, fluorine and sodium. Like fluorite, cryolite is a mineral rock found in the Earth's crust. It has been used since the 1880s for extracting aluminium from bauxite. One of the byproducts of this extraction process is sodium fluoride. Sodium fluoride is not calcium fluoride. It is a different chemical. For example, it actually dissolves in water. It is a poison. It is the fluoride that is usually put into toothpaste. It is the fluoride that used to be added to drinking water. There is yet another kind of fluoride that we need to examine. It is called fluoroapatites or fluorapatites. This fluoride is a combination of phosphor, calcium and fluorine. Like the other fluorides we have already examined, it is a mineral rock found in the Earth's crust. It is the most common source of a fertilizer called phosphate. In order to remove the poisonous fluoride component, the fluorapatite rock is ground up and mixed with sulfuric acid, which causes the fluoride to vaporize into two gases, hydrogen fluoride and silicon tetrafluoride. In the past, the two toxic gases used to be dumped straight into the atmosphere by way of a smokestack. But that is now illegal because they're considered to be dangerous pollutants. So they are scrubbed from the fumes by spraying water into the smokestack. This produces a fluid that is about 25% hydrofluorosilicic acid. It is mostly this fluoride which is added to drinking water, although a powder derived from it, called sodium fluorosilicate, is also sometimes added.
If you ask most dentists and ask them what they're putting in the water, most dentists would say sodium fluoride, pharmaceutical sodium fluoride, the same stuff that is in toothpaste.
They have absolutely no idea that it's, in 9 out of 10 cases, hydrofluorosilicic acid, and that hydrofluorosilicic acid is a waste product for the phosphate industry.
This has come about because for maybe 100 years, the phosphate fertilizer industry put out two very, very poisonous gases into the environment, hydrogen fluoride and silicon tetrafluoride. Eventually, they were required to capture those, and they did it with a wet spray, water, and that water converts these two very toxic gases into hexafluorosilicic acid. And it's this scrubbing liquor, which is about 25% strong, is put into tanker trucks, driven around the country, and added to our drinking water.
If this stuff goes out the stack, it's an air pollutant. If it goes directly into the water supply, if they would take that scrubber liquor and dump it into the local river, it's a water pollutant. But if they put it into a tank wagon and sell it to somebody, the water authority, like magic. It's not a pollutant, and they can take that then to your drinking water supply and not discharge it into your river. They discharge it directly into your drinking water supply, slowly bleed it in, and as magic, it's no longer a toxic pollutant. It's now what's called a product.
It's never purified. It's not a pharmaceutical grade compound. It's a mixture of whatever that collects in the stack gases. And it contains lots of contaminants, a lot of heavy metals.
First tonight, hazmat crews from all across our area responded to a chemical leak this afternoon in Rock Island. The chemical was so strong that it was burning through the concrete there. News 8's Christy Mergenthal has the latest.
It was just before 1 o'clock Thursday afternoon when hazmat crews were called to the Rock Island water treatment plant for a chemical spill coming from this tanker truck.
It's a corrosive agent that the water treatment plant uses, and there was an overflow that caused spillage out from the building onto this driveway behind me.
As plant employees evacuated, crews began suiting up, working quickly to stop the leak that had begun eating through concrete.
And they stopped the leak using some earthen berms with dirt, sand, and some commercial boom equipment, and had it contained pretty much to this facility within a short amount of time.
The chemical hydrofluorosilicic acid is used to add fluoride to the plant's water. Although it poses a burn risk to skin, those living nearby were in no immediate danger.
There's no inhalation hazard at all, so there was no need for us to evacuate any residents around the area.
After several hours, crews were able to clean up the leak, allowing operations to return to normal.
They had to cordon off the area, obviously, but as far as the treatment of the water and the amount of water being used by the public, there's no effect on that at all.
In Rock Island, Christy Mergenthal, WQAD Quad Cities, News 8.
In June 1999, the EPA responded to a formal inquiry from a congressional committee on science. The committee had asked them, what chronic toxicity test data are there on sodium fluorosilicate or hydrofluorosilicic acid? Which, in plain language, means, has anyone investigated to see what happens to people who drink this stuff for a long time? The EPA's reply was, the EPA was not able to identify chronic studies for these chemicals. In other words, no, nobody's ever checked to see what happens if you drink this stuff for a long time. Anyone who tells you that they know for a fact that this concrete-eating acid is safe is a liar. In February 2008, the company that supplies the acid in the USA, called the National Sanitation Foundation, or NSF, published the details of contaminants that it had found in the acid. The most common contaminant was arsenic, then copper, then lead. Although several other toxins were also there. To summarise what's been said so far, the most common form of fluoride added to drinking water is not calcium fluoride. It is not sodium fluoride. It is hydrofluorosilicic acid. It has not been purified in a medical laboratory. It is toxic waste straight from a fertilizer factory. It has never been shown to be safe for long-term consumption by the general public.